Carson, I'd love to first hear about the genesis of the film. What prompted you to make a film about a single day, a single game with these particular characters?
Well, a lot of it has to do with the fact that I've played baseball my whole life, actually, and reflecting on the canon of baseball films, I realized that most of them suck and don't really capture what it feels like to play the game. They're often using baseball as a metaphor for some specific character's development. It's like a metaphor for that. So I wanted to make a film about the actual experiential qualities of the game, and specifically the way that you experience time when you play this game, which is it's a game without a clock, which is rare among the major sports. And so I've been playing in leagues forever, and it used to be more competitive and serious when I was younger, and then as an adult, it became a way to just kind of share a passion with your fellow teammates, and find a way to just enjoy the passing time. Usually on a Sunday, before the work week kicks back up. So it's this like real refuge, and I felt like no film had really captured that aspect of the game. So that's kind of what led me to it at first. Also, I just want to briefly ask anyone, so there's more cast members here than I expected and crew members, so can you all stand up and just give a round of applause to everyone who's here? So thank you. So yeah, I had always been interested, thank you all, in making a film that was, I was looking for a way to make a film that was economical in a way as well. So like one location, I wanted to track day into night. It was very important to me to capture that nuanced passage of time. So yeah, all of those things led to this film.
That's amazing, and I know you just said that you're not a big fan of baseball movies, but you did mention Field of Dreams in your introduction, and you guys are all clearly huge fans of baseball and movies. So I'd have to ask each of you, do you have your favorite baseball movies, and were there any of them inspirational?
Well, my mom's here, so I won't say anything too mean about Field of Dreams, because I know it's her favorite movie, and I don't want to make her feel bad. No, I mean, I love Bull Durham. I think the dialogue is something between bad and good, where it's neither of those things, but so much more. It's the weirdest thing most of the lines in the movie are the weirdest things anyone ever said in their entire lives, and I love it for that. As for actual baseball movies, yeah, I mean, the only like real baseball work that we were thinking about when we were making it as sort of like something to aspire to was Eastbound and Down, because we were like, we want to make something that's that funny, but we have other considerations. We got to make it good, these things like that. You know what I mean? But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I second Nate. I will add, Angels in the Outfield was always not an inspiration on this film, but just as a kid, that movie rocked.
Cliff, for you?
Yeah, probably Bull Durham with baseball. I also like sports. I like the fortune cookie with Jack Lemmon, which is more football. A little accident that happens there. But I like the quirkiness of film, and something that you don't expect. So.
I should note, I don't hate every baseball movie. That was just a good laugh line.
It's a good line, yeah. And for the writers on the stage, I'd love to hear how you all got connected originally, and hear more about your collaboration process.
Yeah, so Carson and I used to go to the same movie theater in Cambridge, Massachusetts for years and years and years and years and years, and then would never say hello to each other, despite the fact that we were the only people there under the age of 50. So we would go see movies from 1919 and then be like, oh, there's the one guy that's my age. I can't talk to that guy. You know what I mean? What are you gonna do? Someone you know on the internet? That's insane. But no, eventually we just got connected out here, and then Carson and Mike have been making films with Omnes. They're like their collective for like a decade, and they kind of welcomed me in because I was like, somebody that could help them work on a baseball movie and make it, kind of funny. But yeah, it was just like sort of like a long protracted non-meeting through a third space that finally ended up happening after we moved to LA. So it just goes to show you how hard it is for men to make friends with each other, which is what our movie's about. But you guys can talk more about
Yeah, I
that.
mean, I've known Carson since 4th grade, I think, and we started making movies since like 7th grade. Those movies weren't good. But then he came up with this idea for a baseball film, and me personally had traumatic experiences playing baseball with getting rocked in the face with a ball. But I've always loved watching baseball. I've always loved being on the sidelines, and just the idea of a film about, mainly what got me interested is a film about people losing something that means dearly to them, and being unable to communicate it with each other, and just being stuck in their New England ways, their hard shells. That's what got me kind of interested, and also just, I don't know, we always work on stuff together, so it's just kind of natural.
Yeah, I mean, I think we wrote a lot of it during the pandemic, and I think we all agreed on what was funny about baseball, the types of people that play it, and also what would be funny to show happen in a game. So we actually started this film, when we wrote it, we started it as kind of a box score. We actually wrote out a box score, and it was important to have that foundation, that spine to build off of, so we would understand when it's worth showing what's on the field and when it's worth digressing to the sidelines of the dugout. And this film is really about how people use this sport as like a facilitator of socialization. So it was important for us to not just show what's happening on the game and spend a lot of time with the actual characters who are really like creating a very special relationship that might be a very different relationship than they have with anyone else in their life.
So we got to talk casting. How did you find and cast this amazing group of character actors? And then also I'd love to hear from Cliff about your perspective of getting involved.
So again, I mean, a lot of this was cast remotely. We live in California, and we knew we wanted to shoot this back on the East Coast, largely because I really cared about shooting this in the fall, which is such it's a season that's so pregnant with meaning for me, because of the coming of a long winter. So that was really important. But so I knew I had to cast this remotely, and a lot of that happened, through a Zoom, and you're trying to gauge if someone has any real familiarity with the game of baseball, which is tricky because someone says, of course, yeah, I'm from America. I played Little League when I was a kid. Or sometimes they'd be like, I played like like 1 decade ago, I was in a league or something. And I think a lot of people might have lied a little bit.
A
I
lot
said I
of
could
bits.
pitch.
So,
I had never pitched. I if you can tell.
but it's tough to gauge someone's athletic ability over a Zoom when you're asking them to kind of like throw a ball in a Zoom screen. It doesn't really tell you much. So really, I was drawn to everyone, through their face and their voice, and whether I felt that they were authentic for this world, and kind of gauging how they might mesh together as a group. And a lot of these people were people I'd worked with before, including Cliff. I've worked with him for so long. He's one of the greatest actors in my book. Big, yeah, incredible. And then a lot of old friends who I just thought would be great in films, and then some newcomers to me as well. So yeah, I'm really proud of what we put together, and I think we had them all live together in the woods nearby set. So that was part of a strategy of mine to kind of just get them to build chemistry outside of my, supervision, and I think it really worked.
I mean, I think there's stories that happen in that actor house that could be its own movie.
I know exactly how much each of the actors owes me for poker. I have a ledger, a Google sheet. I will collect very soon.
Cliff, you want to talk about the journey?
Yeah, the journey. I had worked with Omnis Films before, and started working with Mike and Carson when they were, I think you just started at Emerson as freshmen. So, and then some things over the years, and I'm based in the Boston area, and they've moved out to California and arrived. So it was quite a journey for me to have been with them over the years. It feels like family. And then this particular film meant a lot to me because, it's actually dedicated to a real person, Franny. And I was given a little bit of insight to who he was. And part of the challenge, I think, for each of the actors in this, because it's an ensemble piece and there's not really a story of an individual character, is how do you bring to life a human being through little glimpses of them. And I thought everyone did a masterful job at that. Every time I see it, I catch more from each of the actors. And then light is a character, and silence and sound is a character. And it kind of brings, it brings out the challenges. So I had the job of trying to bring this Franny to life, and had to make decisions on, I never met him, decisions on what he was like. So I sort of thought he would be maybe borderline Asperger's. And that's kind of where the quotes came from, because I figured he'd know every quote in baseball that there was. And so that's how I kind of interpreted that. But the beauty of it, interestingly too, I was not part of the group houses, which everybody in the cast they're like brothers because they've lived together for a while. And I didn't at that time. I was actually caring for a 97-year-old buddy of mine. And so I was commuting to the set. And it was kind of perfect for Franny, because Franny's watching everything happening. He's not really totally immersed with the gang, wants to be, but isn't quite there. He's behind the fence or way up in the stands. So it was kind of an interesting way to bring the character to life with the real situation that was going on in my life. But then to have the film dedicated to the real Franny, who died about a year ago, was moving as well, because you've got a guy that was probably never well known. I've been told he just showed up at the games in New Hampshire, and he's got a film dedicated to him now that's been shown now all over the world. Congratulations to you guys and your brilliance.
And I'd love to hear of any particular challenges or special moments that happened during the shooting.
Got a lot of challenges.
Yeah.
Everything was great.
Well, yeah, smooth as butter.
Smooth as rain.
So it was when we moved into this production after a summer of drought in New England, which of course going into a film about fall was nerve-wracking, because I know that when it doesn't rain, it can really affect the foliage. And then we got into shooting, and it started raining like the dickens. It was like
Literally
crazy.
the first day.
Day one.
Yeah.
Day one. And I had done research in the weather of the region historically, and it generally it's like 6 days of rain. I think that Mike and I scheduled this movie, and we tried to work around 6 days of rain. It ended up being like 13 days of rain or something. So we started to have to actually just pick out like 2 hours of a day, and when the sun would be out, and shoot during that. Fortunately, we had everybody nearby, so that was a real challenge. But the other thing about having rain is that we basically owned this field for a month in Douglas, Massachusetts. The town was very gracious. I went into the town hall and asked for it, and they kind of just said yes right away, for free, by the way. So it was really sweet. But that also meant that we were in charge of like groundskeeping. So when the field was a mess after the rains, puddles everywhere, we actually had to do the groundskeeping ourselves, which we don't know what we're doing. We're just trying to bring dry dirt over to the wet area and shovel the puddles out of the way. And our actor Keith William Richards has done a lot of manual labor in his life, so he was like, we had to shoot with him that day, but he's like taking off his jersey, he's down to like just he's like bare chested at times, I think, just like going into the woods and finding dirt and bringing it back. Like,
I found this good dirt for you. Put it on top of the puddle over there. It'll be fine. You're gonna do great.
that's probably the
Very
best.
positive. Very good guy.
That's the best story. I mean, a lot of actual like labor just to get the field ready to shoot on, or at least the spot of the field that we needed to focus on.
And to add to that, to commend beyond Keith, our entire cast and crew was like out there raking the field, out there, pushing the puddles into the grass. Like everyone was so game and on board to like keep this thing alive, even in the worst days of rain and stuff. It was just like, I don't know, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you, the ones of you who are somewhere scattered around here.
Oh no! Well, the only thing I would say was that on top of that, the overnight shoots. So when we shoot the night scenes, those were all shot at the very end of production, and the nights have been really mild up until when we started shooting. It was right around Halloween, like first week of November, and the first day we shot overnights, it was really, really, really nice. 60 degrees, overcast, just perfect. Incredible time. Like staying up till 4 a.m, no problem. The next 4 nights were the coldest nights of the year, 27 degrees at night. I don't know if you've ever tried to play baseball in the dark in 27-degree weather, but it kind of feels like you're on the moon. It's like really absurd. You're just staring off into this endless expanse of dirt and abyss. It's the worst, most uncomfortable feeling trying to stand on the mound and go, I'm going to drill a curveball, just perfect bottom corner of the zone. It's unbelievably hard. And, you know, the crew, they had to be out there the whole time, but the actors, we only had to be out there certain amounts of time, and that's arguably worse because you know how good you have it when you're warm inside, and they were outside in the cold the whole time. They don't know how bad it is when you get to be warm for a bit, and you know how. Anyway, no, everybody was really, really awesome about how cold it was, and people were really, really really nice, and the actors, we don't know how good we have it.
But the breath looked good too.
Oh, it looked amazing.
No
yeah.
VFX breath. That was real.
So I do want to open it up to the audience, but before we do, I do have to ask how you got Frederick Wiseman and Bill Lee to be involved.
So I spent a long time trying to find Bill Lee's information. I think I went through some different producers who had worked with him in the past because he has had appearances in different films. He was in Baseball by Ken Burns and other things. So I took this sort of like long trail to him, and then eventually everything turned up. I couldn't find him, so I just ended up looking in the white pages and finding his home phone number and calling him, and he answered right away. So so that ended up working out, and he's brilliantly funny and such a charismatic guy. We actually got him on very, very early in the process. I think at this point, to this day, I don't know if he knows that this is not a documentary about him. But, you know, he's great in it. He really is phenomenal, I think. So I had him involved early in the process, which really helped us like kind of attract people to the project and get the resources we needed. As for Fred, like early on, I was interested in having Fred in the film as Franny, actually. You know, Fred's in his 90s. He also lives in France. It just wasn't going to work out with the schedules. So later on, when I'm in the post process, I'm thinking about trying to bring in this radio element. And I thought of him again. He's got a great voice. He's also just a filmmaker who I think is doing something similar to what this film is doing. Agree to disagree, maybe, but his films are all about this like boundless curiosity for different groups of people in the way that they have a very specific, unique language and way of operating together. And I thought it's like anthropological approach, and I thought this is a way to kind of cue the viewer that's kind of what EEPHUS is doing as well. It's not necessarily a traditional narrative. So I'm just really honored that he was happy to do it.
It's amazing. We have a roving mic, so if you do have a question, you can raise your hand and a mic will appear.
Can you tell the story where you thought you almost didn't have Bill Lee for the movie?
Oh.
I got a little insight, but I think that's a great story.
Oh, it is a great story. 3 weeks before production, and I got a text that was like, Bill Lee just died on the field. I don't know if it was quite that, but he pitches for a team called the Savannah Bananas, which is sort of like a traveling, what do you call it, like Harlem Globetrotters kind of thing for baseball. And this was the first televised game for the Savannah Bananas on ESPN, like the Ocho or whatever. And yeah, it was televised, and he fainted on the field. You know, he's getting up there in age, but he also pushes himself quite a bit. He travels around, he pitches, he's full of energy. He fainted on the field, and they were concerned for quite a while. I think his heart stopped, but he got rushed to the hospital, and he was revived, and then he was like, all right, let's do it again. Let's go. You know, like he was ready to pitch again. So
Yeah, no, you could not tell at all when he showed up on set. He was like, "Hey, you want me in this shot?" Or was like, "We're filming something else." I was like, "No, I'll get in the next shot. Just get me the camera on me. I'll do it right now." And it was like, "No, sir, we'll be wait a couple hours." I was like, "All right, fine." But he was like had so much more energy than at least me. I was sitting there going like, "God, I hope they don't want to shoot me next." And he's like, "I'm ready to go." So he was like unbelievably full of energy, and just like whenever the cameras weren't rolling, and sometimes when they were, he was talking to everybody, just like telling stories. It was like really, really amazing.
I should note that this happened actually again after we shot. Like he had another episode on a field. Yeah.
Well,
So he's just pushing. I mean, he will die on a baseball field, and it's very fitting, I think.
That was a great question. Do we have any others out there? I cannot see.
Hi there. First, gotta just say, love the film. Because what I wanted to ask though was, when did you guys basically decide on that ending for the film? The fact that most baseball films end in like a like a home run or like a big hit, but the fact you guys ended the movie like on a walk though, like sort of like like kind of like makes it like almost like an anti like you said earlier, an anti Field of Dreams. So I'm curious your thought process for how you came up with that.
Day one, that was immediate. The first thing we thought was, well, it's got to end on a walk-off walk. It's like when you watch a baseball game, there's always a chance you're going to see something you've never seen before. And some of the weirdest things decide baseball games. And we always knew that we wanted to have a really weird sort of like strange happenstance, like solve the game in a way that was like fundamentally for the sport angle of the movie very unsatisfying. So we were like, well, what's the worst way a game's ever decided? Oh, I know, walk-off walk. Yeah, just miserable. So that was like a very, very clear like touch point for us when we were writing the script.
But it being from the guy who just got put into the game was our like way of making it feel kind of refreshing. This dude who's sitting in the dugout the entire game gets on bat and then just walks.
So
and
it's sort of
wins the game.
triumphant for him. Yeah.
Oh, he's the man, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, this film is not about the game. It's about what the game is allowing these people to experience together, and it's about the end of it. It's about like how do we go on from this and have to say goodbye to a version of ourselves that we've created here together. It didn't make sense for us to let the game be exciting or spectacular. That's just never what we wanted to do. We wanted to see the struggle of having to deal with the ending and for it to just end with a whimper, I think was just absolutely accurate.